Melody Baker seemed to have it all: a thriving career as a lawyer, two bright teenage children, and a loving husband, Will Baker, whom she had cherished for over 2 decades. At 42, Melody still turned heads with her striking features, dark, expressive eyes, a radiant smile, and a graceful figure. She had a sharp mind and a natural ability to read people, traits that made her both an exceptional lawyer and a compassionate mother. Yet, beneath her polished exterior, her world was quietly unraveling. As she sat at a lavish banquet table that evening, the weight of her choices bore down on her. The once stable foundation of her marriage and family life now teetered on the brink of collapse. Will sat beside her, his demeanor calm yet distant, while across the table sat her client, Robert Dawson, whose presence seemed to amplify the tension in the room. Between them, an unspoken battle raged, a battle ignited by a shocking proposal that had thrown their lives into turmoil. It all began several months earlier when Robert, the charismatic executive of a major corporation, had sought representation at Melody's firm. He was embroiled in a heated lawsuit against a multinational bank, and Melody was assigned to handle his case. Their professional relationship started conventionally enough: meetings, strategy sessions, and late-night work sessions. But as the case progressed, so did their personal connection. At first, Melody kept things professional, maintaining the boundaries she prided herself on. Robert, however, was not an easy man to ignore. Tall, magnetic, and exuding confidence, he had a way of commanding attention. His charm was effortless, and his interest in Melody went beyond the boardroom. As they worked late into the evenings, discussing legal tactics over dinners that grew increasingly intimate, a connection began to form, one that made Melody feel alive in a way she hadn't in years. For Melody, the monotony of her marriage had been a quiet thief, stealing away the passion she once shared with Will. Will was a talented writer, a man of intellect and integrity, but his steady, predictable nature often left Melody yearning for something more. Robert seemed to embody everything she felt was missing: spontaneity, adventure, and an undeniable allure. It wasn't long before the professional facade began to crack. Melody found herself lingering in Robert's office longer than necessary, laughing at his jokes and savoring the moments they shared. The way he looked at her, like she was the only woman in the world, was intoxicating. And though she never crossed the line, the temptation loomed like a storm on the horizon. The proposal that changed everything. One evening, after a particularly grueling day of negotiations, Robert suggested they take a break. Over a glass of wine in a dimly lit restaurant, he leaned in closer than usual. "Melody," he began, his voice low and deliberate, "how long has it been since you did something just for yourself? Something wild, exciting, unforgettable?" Melody froze, her heart racing as his words hung in the air. She didn't respond immediately, and Robert took her silence as encouragement. "Next Friday, there's a charity gala in town," he continued, a sly smile spreading across his face. "I'll be there with Gina, my dance partner and companion for the evening. You and Will should come. It'll be memorable." "What exactly are you suggesting, Robert?" Melody asked, though part of her already knew the answer. Robert's grin widened, his confidence unwavering. "A weekend. You and me. Will and Gina. Think about it." Melody's breath caught at Robert's audacity. It was as if he had read her mind, unearthing the restless desires she had buried deep inside. For a fleeting moment, she imagined what it might be like, an escape from the confines of her predictable life. But reality quickly reasserted itself. She forced a smile, masking the turmoil within, and responded carefully. "That's quite a bold suggestion, Robert. But I think you've underestimated my husband." Robert simply leaned back, unbothered. "Perhaps. Or maybe I've just seen what you haven't dared to admit to yourself." Melody left the restaurant that evening shaken, torn between intrigue and guilt. When she arrived home, Will was in his office, surrounded by stacks of manuscripts. He looked up as she entered, giving her a warm but distracted smile. "Late night?" he asked. "Just work," Melody replied, her voice tighter than she intended. Will paused, sensing the shift in her demeanor. He studied her for a moment, but chose not to press further. Days later, Melody shared Robert's outrageous suggestion with Will over dinner, hoping for his reassurance. Instead, she was met with a steely calm that unnerved her. "Does this mean Robert thinks I'm going home with Gina?" Will asked dryly, his knife slicing through his steak with precision. "Of course not," Melody shot back too quickly. "It's absurd, Will. He was joking." Will put down his fork and looked at her, his gaze cutting through the half-truths she was trying to weave. "Mel," he said quietly, "was he joking, or were you tempted?" The weight of his words silenced her. Melody looked down at her plate, the silence between them louder than any argument they'd ever had. When the night of the gala arrived, Melody dressed with meticulous care. She chose a sleek black dress that accentuated her figure, her dark hair cascading in loose waves. Will, ever the picture of understated elegance, donned a tailored suit. The event was held in a grand hall downtown, its crystal chandeliers and polished marble floors exuding opulence. Melody felt a knot tighten in her stomach as they entered, her eyes scanning the crowd for Robert. It didn't take long to find him. He stood near the bar, exuding confidence in his tailored tuxedo, Gina by his side. Gina was stunning, tall, poised, and impossibly young. Her radiant smile and effortless grace only heightened Melody's insecurities. As the evening unfolded, Melody found herself on the dance floor with Robert, their steps perfectly in sync. "Are you still thinking about my proposal?" Robert murmured as they swayed to the slow rhythm. "I'm here with my husband, Robert," Melody replied, her voice firm despite the fluttering in her chest. "And yet," Robert whispered, leaning closer, "you're dancing with me."